Dr. Kim Dae-ho stared at his computer screen for the third time that morning. The numbers still looked wrong. He rubbed his tired eyes and checked the readings again. The gravitational sensors at the Deep Space Observatory showed something massive, moving at the edge of the solar system. "This cannot be right," he said to himself in Korean before switching back to English. He had been working at the International Station for 5 years now, and he had never seen readings like this. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but Dae-ho did not notice. He was too busy running calculations. Whatever was out there was big, very big, and it was moving toward Earth. Dr. Park Mina walked into the control room carrying 2 fresh cups of coffee. She was Dae-ho's research partner and had worked with him since they both graduated from Seoul National University 10 years ago. "You look terrible," she said, setting 1 cup next to his keyboard. "How long have you been here?" "Since yesterday," Dae-ho replied without looking away from his screen. "Mina, look at this. Tell me what you see." Mina sat down at the computer next to his and pulled up the same data. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the numbers. "These readings are impossible. The equipment must be broken." "That is what I thought too," Dae-ho said. "But I ran diagnostics 3 times. Everything is working perfectly. The gravitational sensors were designed to detect objects far from Earth. They could spot asteroids, comets, and even small planets long before they became dangerous. But the readings showing on their screens suggested something much larger than any natural object. "How big do you think it is?" Mina asked. Dae-ho typed in some commands and brought up a size comparison chart. Based on the gravitational signature, it would have to be at least 10,000 kilometers across. Maybe bigger. Mina laughed nervously. "That is bigger than Earth. Nothing natural is that big and moving that fast." "I know," Dae-ho said quietly. "That is why I have been here all night." They worked together for the next few hours, checking and rechecking their data. They ran every test they could think of. They even contacted other observatories around the world to see if anyone else was picking up the same signals. By evening, they had confirmed the impossible. Something massive was approaching the solar system from deep space. It was not a planet or an asteroid. It was artificial. It was a fleet of ships. "We need to call the director," Mina said. Dr. Williams, the observatory director, arrived within an hour. He was a tall British man who had run the facility for over 20 years. When Dae-ho and Mina showed him their findings, his face went pale. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Dae-ho replied. "We have triple-checked everything. The objects are artificial and they are moving in formation. Based on their current speed, they will reach the outer planets in about 6 months." Dr. Williams sat down heavily in his chair. "How many ships are we talking about?" Mina pulled up another screen. "Our best estimate is around 10,000 individual objects. Each one appears to be several kilometers in length." "Dear God," Williams whispered. "We need to contact the UN immediately." The next morning, Colonel Lee Jun-woo received an urgent call from his superior at the South Korean Space Command. Within hours, he was on a plane to New York to attend an emergency meeting at the United Nations. Jun-woo was a military analyst who specialized in space threats. He had spent most of his career tracking satellites and space debris. He had never expected to deal with alien spacecraft. The UN Security Council meeting was unlike anything in history. Representatives from every major nation gathered to hear the shocking news. Dr. Williams presented the observatory's findings to a room full of stunned diplomats and military leaders. "The alien fleet is massive," Williams explained. "Each ship appears to be larger than our biggest cities. They are moving in perfect formation, which suggests advanced coordination between vessels." Junwoo studied the data carefully. As a military man, he focused on the tactical implications. "What kind of weapons do they have?" he asked. "We do not know," Williams admitted. "But the energy signatures we are detecting are enormous. Each ship produces more power than our entire electrical grid." President Han So-young of South Korea spoke up from her seat at the council table. "Do we know if they are hostile?" "We have no way of knowing their intentions," Williams replied. "But a fleet this size could only have one purpose: conquest." The room fell silent as the full implications sank in. Earth was facing an alien invasion force that could destroy human civilization without breaking a sweat. Over the next few days, world leaders held emergency meetings around the clock. Every military expert and scientist was consulted. The conclusion was always the same. Humanity had no defense against such a massive force. Junwoo worked with teams from every major military to calculate Earth's defensive capabilities. The numbers were depressing. All of Earth's military forces combined could not match even a small portion of the alien fleet. "We have maybe 200 combat-capable spacecraft," he reported to the International Defense Committee. "They have 10,000 ships, each one larger than our biggest vessels." General Morrison from the United States asked the question everyone was thinking: what are our chances? Junwoo looked at his notes and then back at the assembled officers. "Honestly, none. If they want to destroy us, they can do it easily." Meanwhile, observatories around the world continued to track the approaching fleet. The aliens maintained their steady course toward Earth. They showed no signs of slowing down or changing direction. Dr. Daeho had barely slept since making the discovery. He spent every waking hour studying the alien ships, trying to learn anything that might help humanity survive. Mina worked beside him, analyzing every piece of data they could gather. "Look at this," Mina said one evening, pointing to her screen. "The ships are all moving at exactly the same speed. Their formation has not changed at all in 2 weeks." "What does that mean?" Daeho asked. "I am not sure. But it seems strange that they would maintain such rigid positioning." "Most military formations adjust based on conditions." Daeho nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe they do not need to adjust. When you are that powerful, tactics might not matter." News of the alien fleet eventually leaked to the public despite government efforts to keep it secret. Panic spread across the globe as people realized that Earth was facing an enemy that could not be defeated. Some countries tried to build underground shelters. Others focused on evacuation plans to get people off the planet. But everyone knew these efforts were hopeless against such overwhelming force. President Han So-young addressed the world in a televised speech. "We face the greatest challenge in human history," she said. "But we will not give up. We will use every resource and every brilliant mind on Earth to find a way to survive." Scientists and engineers worked frantically to develop new weapons and defenses. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. The alien armada approaching Earth was too powerful to stop. As the weeks passed, the alien fleet grew larger in the telescopes. Soon, individual ships became visible as points of light moving against the stars. Each day brought them closer to Earth, and each day brought humanity closer to what seemed like certain extinction. In the control room of the Deep Space Observatory, Daeho and Mina continued their watch. They had discovered the greatest threat in human history, and now they could only wait to see if anyone could find a way to stop it. The countdown had begun. In less than 6 months, the alien armada would arrive at Earth. Whether humanity would still exist to greet them remained to be seen. Dr. Choi Young-sik had always been fascinated by quantum mechanics. While the world panicked about the approaching alien fleet, he found himself buried deeper than ever in his research at the Seoul Institute of Technology. His laboratory was filled with complex machines that most people could not understand. Quantum computers hummed quietly in temperature-controlled chambers. Banks of monitors displayed equations that looked like alien language to anyone outside his field. "Professor, you should go home," his assistant said. "You have been here for 3 days straight." Young-sik looked up from his work, blinking tired eyes. "There is something important here. I can feel it." He had been analyzing the energy patterns from the alien fleet that Dr. Kim Dae-ho had shared with research institutions worldwide. What he found was puzzling. The aliens were using quantum entanglement for communication between their ships. This was not surprising. Any civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel would need faster-than-light communication. But their method was crude and inefficient. "They are using brute force," Young-sik muttered to himself, "like using a sledgehammer to crack an egg." He pulled up his own research on quantum communication. For the past 5 years, his team had been developing theoretical models for quantum information transfer. Their approach was elegant and efficient, using mathematical principles that the aliens seemed to ignore. Young-sik called his colleague, Dr. Bae Hye-jin, who worked on Earth's experimental defense systems. Hye-jin was one of the few people who could understand his research? I need you to look at something, he said when she answered her phone. Hee-Jin arrived at his lab within an hour. She was a brilliant engineer who had designed most of Earth's orbital defense platforms. If anyone could see the practical applications of his work, it would be her. Show me what you have found, she said, sitting down at his computer. Young Sik displayed the alien communication patterns alongside his own theoretical models. Look at how they handle quantum entanglement. They are using massive amounts of energy to maintain connections that should require almost no power. Hee-Jin studied the data carefully. It is like they never learned efficiency. They just throw more power at problems instead of solving them elegantly. Exactly, Young Sik said excitedly. And look at this. Our quantum defense grid uses similar principles. We designed it to be lightweight and efficient because we do not have unlimited energy. The quantum defense grid was one of Earth's newest projects. It was designed to protect satellites and space stations from debris and small meteorites. The system used quantum fields to deflect objects without requiring massive power sources. Are you suggesting our defensive systems might actually be more advanced than theirs? Hee-Jin asked. In some ways, yes, Young Sik replied. They have bigger ships and more power, but their technology is not sophisticated. It is just big. Meanwhile, Captain Nam Ki-Tai was coordinating Earth's space defense forces from the orbital command station. He had served in the Korean Space Navy for 15 years and had never faced anything like this challenge. Earth's space fleet was small but modern. The ships were designed for speed and maneuverability rather than heavy armor. They used advanced AI systems that could adapt to changing situations in real time. Ki-Tai studied intelligence reports about the alien fleet. Something bothered him about their formation patterns. They have not changed course or speed once, he told his operations officer. Every ship maintains exactly the same position relative to the others. Maybe they are just disciplined, the officer suggested. Or maybe they cannot change, Ki-Tai replied thoughtfully. He called up tactical simulations on his command screen. Earth's fleet consisted of about 200 ships, ranging from small fighters to medium cruisers. Against 10,000 alien vessels, the numbers looked hopeless. But Ki-Tai had learned something important during his years in space. Numbers were not everything. A few smart fighters could sometimes defeat a larger force if they were clever enough. Pull up the specifications on our newest ships, he ordered. The latest Earth fighters were marvels of engineering. They used quantum computers for navigation and targeting. Their AI systems could learn and adapt during combat. Most importantly, they were designed to work together as a team while still allowing individual pilots to make creative decisions. Ki-Tai compared this to what they knew about the alien fleet. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, never deviating from their programmed course. This suggested they might be controlled by a central intelligence rather than individual pilots. Central control can be efficient, Ki-Tai said to himself, but it can also be vulnerable. He began developing tactical plans based on this assumption. If the alien ships were controlled by a hive mind, they might have trouble adapting to unexpected situations. Back in his laboratory, Young Sik made another discovery. The quantum signatures from the alien fleet showed something strange. The ships were not just communicating with each other. They were linked in a way that suggested shared consciousness. Hee-Jin, look at this pattern, he said, pointing to his screen. The quantum entanglement is not just for communication. It is linking their minds together. A hive mind? Hee-Jin asked. Yes, but a technological one. They are using quantum fields to share thoughts and decisions across the entire fleet. This was both fascinating and terrifying. A hive mind could coordinate 10,000 ships perfectly, but it might also have weaknesses that individual minds would not have. Young Sik began working on mathematical models to understand how such a system might function. If they could find flaws in the alien hive mind, they might find a way to exploit them. Dr. Shin Tae-young joined their research team the next day. He was a specialist in artificial intelligence and quantum computing. When he saw Young Sik's data, he became very excited. "This is incredible," Tae-young said. "They have created a quantum network linking millions of minds, but the processing power required would be enormous." "What does that mean for us?" Hee-Jin asked. "It means they might be vulnerable to information overload," Tae-young explained. A hive mind this size would need massive computational resources. If we could disrupt those resources, the whole system might collapse. The three scientists worked together through the night, developing theories about how to attack a quantum hive mind. They realized that Earth's smaller, more efficient quantum systems might actually be an advantage. We do not need to match their power, Young-sik said. We need to be smarter than they are. Like using a key instead of breaking down. A door, Hee-jin added. Meanwhile, Captain Kite was running combat simulations with his best pilots. He had selected 50 of Earth's most experienced space fighters to form an elite squadron. We cannot match their firepower, he told his pilots during a briefing, but we might be able to outthink them. The simulations showed that human pilots had certain advantages over computer-controlled ships. They could make intuitive decisions and adapt quickly to changing situations. They could also work together while still thinking independently. Each of you needs to be ready to improvise, Kite explained. If my theory is correct, the alien ships will not be able to handle unexpected tactics. One of his pilots, Lieutenant Yoo-jin-ae, raised her hand. What kind of unexpected tactics? Anything that breaks their formation or forces them to make individual decisions, Kite replied. Random movements, false retreats, asymmetric attacks, anything that does not fit their programming. As the days passed, the alien fleet grew closer to Earth. But instead of despair, a new feeling was growing among Earth's defenders. They were beginning to understand their enemy, and they were finding weaknesses. The aliens were powerful, but they were not invincible. Their technology was impressive in scale, but lacking in sophistication. Their hive mind was coordinated but potentially vulnerable to disruption. Most importantly, the aliens seemed to lack something that humans took for granted, the ability to think independently and creatively. We might actually have a chance, Young-sik told his team as they watched the alien fleet approach on their monitors. Not just a chance, Hee-jin replied with growing confidence. We might have advantages they never expected to face. The battle for Earth was still months away, but the tide was already beginning to turn. Humanity was about to discover that sometimes the smallest fighter can defeat the biggest bully if they are smart enough to find the right pressure points. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected a smaller group breaking away from the main alien fleet. 500 ships were heading directly toward Earth, moving faster than the main Armada. Commander Oh Se-bin received the alert while reviewing tactical plans at the Lunar Defense Station. She was one of Earth's most experienced space combat officers, having served in conflicts with asteroid pirates and rogue space stations. It looks like they are sending scouts, her operations officer reported. 500 vessels, estimated. Arrival in 72 hours. Se-bin studied the tactical display. The approaching ships were smaller than the massive vessels in the main fleet, but each one was still larger than Earth's biggest cruisers. They want to test our defenses before committing their main force, she said. This is our chance to test our theories. She immediately contacted Captain Nam Ki-tae, who was preparing his elite squadron for exactly this situation. Within 6 hours, 50 of Earth's best pilots were launching from bases around the solar system. Lieutenant Yoo-jin-ae felt her heart racing as her fighter accelerated away from the launch platform. She had trained for space combat her entire career, but never against alien technology. Her ship was a marvel of human engineering. The quantum computer provided real-time tactical analysis, while her AI assistant helped with navigation and targeting. But the most important component was her own human creativity and intuition. Stay loose, everyone, Captain Kite's voice came through the communication system. Remember, we are not trying to win through firepower. We need to learn how they think. The human fleet formed up in a loose formation that would have looked chaotic to military observers. Unlike the rigid formations favored by most space navies, Kite's pilots maintained flexible positioning that allowed for quick adaptation. Contact in 30 minutes, Jin-ae's AI assistant announced. Enemy formation detected. Perfect grid pattern, no deviation. Through her cockpit window, Jin-ae could see the alien scouts approaching. They moved in flawless formation, each ship maintaining exact distance from its neighbors. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Look at that spacing. Another pilot commented over the radio. They are like robots. That is exactly what they are, Kite replied. Remember the briefing. These ships are probably controlled by a central mind. They will not adapt quickly to changes. The battle began when the alien ships opened fire at maximum range. Their weapons were powerful energy beams that could vaporize a human fighter in one hit, but they fired in predictable patterns, sweeping from left to right in organized waves. All ships, random evasion pattern 7, Kaite ordered. The human fighters scattered in all directions, using unpredictable movements that confused the alien targeting systems. Jin-A rolled her ship in a spiral while accelerating toward the enemy formation. The alien ships continued firing in their programmed patterns, unable to adjust to the chaotic human tactics. Several beams missed their targets by wide margins, because the aliens could not predict where the human ships would go next. "They are still firing at where we were, not where we are," Jin-A reported excitedly. "Confirmed," Kaite replied. "All ships, execute Plan Chaos." Plan Chaos was exactly what it sounded like. The human pilots began flying in completely random patterns, making impossible maneuvers that no computer could predict. They dove, climbed, rolled, and spun without any apparent logic. The alien formation began to show signs of confusion. Some ships stopped firing altogether while others continued to shoot at empty space. Their perfect grid formation started to waver as individual ships tried to track targets that moved like drunken insects. "Now we test their reaction time," Kaite announced. "Jinny, make your run." Jinny had been waiting for this moment. She accelerated directly toward the center of the alien formation, weaving between energy beams like a dancer. As she approached the lead ship, she suddenly reversed direction and flew back the way she came. The result was spectacular. The alien ships tried to track her movement, but their targeting systems could not handle the sudden reversal. Several ships fired at each other as their computers became confused about which direction she was going. They just shot their own. "Ships!" another pilot shouted with amazement. "All fighters, exploit the confusion," Kaite ordered. "Attack from multiple directions simultaneously." The human fighters dove into the alien formation from 6 different angles. The alien ships, programmed to respond to threats individually, began firing in all directions. Without individual intelligence to coordinate their response, they created a crossfire that was more dangerous to themselves than to the humans. Jin-A watched in amazement as alien ship after alien ship was destroyed by friendly fire. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships collided with each other while trying to target the fast-moving human fighters. "This is impossible," one of the human pilots said. "They are destroying themselves." "No," Kaite replied grimly. "We are destroying them by forcing them to think independently. Their hive mind cannot handle this kind of chaos." The battle lasted only 2 hours. When it was over, 200 alien ships had been destroyed while only 12 human fighters were lost. The remaining alien scouts retreated toward their main fleet, apparently unable to process what had happened. Back at the Lunar Command Center, Commander Sebin watched the battle data with growing excitement. The human pilots had not just survived, they had won decisively against overwhelming odds. "Get me Dr. Choi Young-sik," she ordered her communications officer. Young-sik arrived at the command center within hours, bringing Dr. Shin Tae-young with him. Both scientists were eager to analyze the battle data. "Look at this," Tae-young said, pointing to quantum communication intercepts. During the battle, their network traffic increased by 3,000%. They were trying to coordinate a response to our tactics, but their system could not handle the processing load. "So our theory was correct," Young-sik added. "Their hive mind is powerful but inflexible. When faced with truly random behavior, it starts to break down." Sebin studied the tactical replay. "What impressed me most was that they seemed incapable of learning during the battle. They kept making the same mistakes over and over." "That makes sense," Tae-young explained. "A hive mind shares information instantly, but it also shares weaknesses. When one part of the system fails, the failure spreads to all connected parts. Like a computer virus," Young-sik added. Meanwhile, the captured alien technology from the destroyed scouts was being analyzed by research teams around the world. Dr. Shin Tae-young led the analysis of the alien computer systems. What he found was disturbing and encouraging at the same time. The alien ships were crewed by living beings, but those beings were controlled by cybernetic implants that suppressed individual thought. "They are not naturally a hive mind," Tae-young reported to the International Defense Committee. "These beings were once individuals like us. The technology forces them to think as one. This discovery changed everything. Earth was not just fighting an alien invasion. They were fighting a tyrannical system that had enslaved an entire species. Look at these neural patterns, Tae-Young showed his colleagues. Before the implants activate, these beings show creativity and independent thought. The technology literally shuts down the parts of their brains that make them individuals. What happens if the implants are damaged? Someone asked. Based on our analysis, they would regain their individual consciousness. They might even rebel against their controllers. This information was immediately shared with Captain Kai-Tae and his pilots. The next phase of Earth's defense would not just be about protecting humanity, it would be about liberating the enslaved aliens. We are not just fighting an enemy, Ki-Tae told his squadron during their next briefing. We are fighting a prison system. Those alien crews are victims just like we would be if they conquered us. Lieutenant Jin-A raised her hand. Does this change our tactics? Yes and no, Kai-Tae replied. We still need to disable their ships, but now we know that creating chaos in their hive mind might actually free the crew members. Instead of destroying them, we might be liberating them. The implications were staggering. If Earth could find a way to disrupt the alien control system on a large scale, the entire invasion fleet might turn against itself. We need to develop weapons that target their cybernetic systems instead of their ships, Young-Sik suggested during a strategy meeting. Quantum viruses, Tae-Young added excitedly. We could create information patterns that disrupt their neural implants while leaving their natural minds intact. Commander Sebin looked at the assembled scientists and officers. A few weeks ago, Earth had seemed doomed against an overwhelming alien force. Now they were discussing how to liberate 10,000 ships worth of enslaved beings. Let me understand this correctly, she said. We are going to defeat the most powerful invasion fleet in history by setting it free? Exactly, Young-Sik replied with a smile. Sometimes the best way to win a war is to convince the other side to join you. The battle with the alien scouts had proven that Earth's defenders could win against impossible odds. But more importantly, it had shown them that their real enemy was not the alien beings themselves, but the system that controlled them. The main alien fleet was still approaching, but Earth was nihil. The main alien Armada arrived at the edge of the solar system exactly when Earth's scientists had predicted. 10,000 massive ships took position near the orbit of Neptune, their formation perfect and intimidating. Admiral Kang Min-ho stood on the bridge of Earth's command station, watching the alien fleet through the massive viewing windows. He had served in space for 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for this sight. They are just sitting there, his operations officer reported. No movement, no communication attempts. They seem to be waiting for something. Min-ho had been promoted to admiral specifically for this crisis. His calm personality and creative thinking made him the perfect choice to coordinate Earth's unusual defense strategy. Activate the deep space broadcasting stations, he ordered. It is time to test Dr. Lim's theory. Dr. Lim Soo-young had been working with Earth's most brilliant linguists and mathematicians for weeks. Her team had developed a completely new approach to first contact. Instead of trying to communicate in traditional ways, they would broadcast human creativity itself. Broadcasting stations are ready, the communications officer announced. We are transmitting on all frequencies simultaneously. What Earth began sending into space was unlike any message ever transmitted. Instead of simple mathematical sequences or basic pictures, they broadcast complex mathematical proofs, abstract art, poetry in dozens of languages, and musical compositions. The transmissions included Einstein's equations presented as musical notes, fractal patterns that told stories, and mathematical problems with multiple creative solutions. Each signal was designed to showcase human creativity and independent thinking. Dr. Lim watched the transmission data from her laboratory at Seoul National University. She had spent her career studying how different species might communicate, but this was the first time her theories would be tested with real aliens. The key is not to communicate facts, she explained to her team. We need to communicate the concept of individual creativity. We need to show them that minds can think differently and still be valuable. On the alien command ship, something unprecedented was happening. The hive mind that controlled the massive fleet was experiencing something it had never encountered before: confusion. For millions of years, the alien collective had conquered species after species. They had dealt with surrender, resistance, and fear. but they had never encountered signals that their collective intelligence could not categorize. The mathematical proofs broadcast by Earth were correct, but solved in ways the alien computers had never seen. The art made no logical sense, but somehow conveyed meaning. The music followed patterns that were mathematically beautiful, but completely unpredictable. The alien hive mind tried to process these transmissions but found itself stuck in infinite loops. Every time it tried to analyze a piece of human creativity, it discovered new layers of meaning that led to more questions instead of answers. Unknown transmission types detected, the alien systems reported to themselves, unable to categorize, request processing instructions. But there were no processing instructions for creativity. The hive mind had been designed to handle military threats, diplomatic communications, and scientific data. It had never been programmed to understand art, poetry, or individual expression. Meanwhile, Captain Hwang Dong-hyun was preparing for the most dangerous mission of his life. He commanded Earth's newest stealth ship, equipped with experimental quantum technology that could make it invisible to most sensors. His mission was to plant what Dr. Choi Young-sik called liberation viruses directly into the alien communication network. These were not destructive programs, but rather complex information patterns designed to awaken individual consciousness in the enslaved alien crews. Remember, Young-sik had told him during the mission briefing, these viruses are not meant to destroy their computers. They are meant to free their minds. Dong-hyun's ship approached the alien fleet using a route calculated to avoid their sensor networks. The quantum stealth system bent light around his vessel, making it effectively invisible. Target acquired, his pilot reported quietly. Communications relay ship, outer perimeter of their formation. The alien communication ships were massive, structures that coordinated the quantum links between all fleet vessels. If Dong-hyun could introduce the liberation virus into one of these ships, it would spread throughout the entire network. Beginning virus upload, his systems officer announced. The liberation virus was a masterpiece of human creativity disguised as routine maintenance data. It contained mathematical proofs that led to philosophical questions, artistic patterns that encouraged individual interpretation, and logical puzzles that required creative thinking to solve. Most importantly, the virus included what Dr. Shin Tae-young called freedom algorithms, information patterns that specifically targeted the cybernetic implants suppressing individual thought in the alien crew members. Upload complete, the systems officer reported. Virus is now active in their network. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance, Dong-hyun ordered. We do not know how quickly this will spread. The effect began almost immediately. On alien ships throughout the fleet, crew members began experiencing strange sensations they had not felt for thousands of years, individual thoughts. The liberation virus spread through the quantum communication network like wildfire. It did not damage the alien technology, but instead activated dormant neural pathways in the enslaved beings' brains. For the first time in millennia, alien crew members began to question their orders. They started to notice things they had ignored before. The beauty of the stars, the fear in their fellow crew members' eyes, the oppressive weight of the technology controlling their minds. Lieutenant Colonel Im Yu-jin monitored the alien fleet from Earth's orbital surveillance station. She had been tracking alien communications since the fleet's arrival, and suddenly their network traffic exploded. Something is happening, she reported to Admiral Min-ho. Their communication patterns are becoming chaotic. Ships are breaking. Formation. On the viewing screens, the perfectly organized alien armada was beginning to fall apart. Individual ships started deviating from their assigned positions. Some vessels powered down their weapons while others began moving in, apparently, random directions. The virus is working, Dr. Young-sik announced from his laboratory. Their hive mind is losing control as individual consciousness awakens throughout the fleet. The alien command ship desperately tried to regain control by sending override commands to all vessels. But the liberation virus had anticipated this response. Every override command was automatically analyzed and countered by newly awakened alien minds. On ship after ship, alien crew members began removing their cybernetic implants. The process was painful and dangerous, but the desire for freedom was stronger than the fear of death. Commander Thekvar was the first alien to fully remove his control implant. He had been the navigation officer on a mid-sized cruiser for over 3,000 years, but suddenly he could remember his life before the collective. He remembered his home planet, his family, and his dreams of exploring the galaxy peacefully. He remembered the day the collective arrived and forced everyone to accept the implants. Most of all, he remembered choosing to resist and being punished for it. Communications, he called to his fellow crew members, his voice shaking with emotion. Contact the other ships. Tell them we are free. Similar scenes were happening throughout the alien fleet. As more crew members awakened, they began helping others remove their implants. Ships that had been unified in their purpose of conquest suddenly became centers of rebellion. Engineer Song Narai was monitoring these developments from Earth's diplomatic station. She was part of a team preparing for possible first contact with liberated aliens. "We are receiving communications from multiple alien vessels," she reported excitedly. "They are trying to establish peaceful contact." The first message was transmitted in broken mathematical concepts, but the meaning was clear. "Help us. We are free, but do not know what to do." Admiral Minho made a historic decision. "Open communication channels. Let us talk to our new friends." The conversation that followed was unlike anything in human history. Alien beings who had been enemies minutes before were now asking for guidance on how to live as free individuals. "We have been slaves for so long," one alien captain transmitted. "We do not remember how to make our own choices." "You will learn," Minho replied. "Freedom is something every being can master with time and practice." But not all the alien ships were embracing liberation. About 40% of the fleet remained under collective control, their crews either unable or unwilling to remove their implants. These ships began attacking the liberated vessels, trying to eliminate what they saw as infected units. The perfectly organized invasion fleet had become a chaotic civil war. "The collective ships are firing on the free ones," Mu Jin reported. "The liberated aliens are fighting back, but they are outnumbered." Admiral Minho faced a critical decision. Earth could remain neutral and let the aliens fight among themselves, or they could intervene to help the liberated ships. "All Earth vessels, prepare for combat," he ordered. "We are going to help our new allies." Captain Kaite received the order with grim satisfaction. His pilots had proven they could defeat alien tech. The remaining collective ships were retreating, but Admiral Kang Min-ho knew the danger was not over. The hive mind controlling those vessels would not simply give up. It would try to regain control of the liberated fleet or summon reinforcements from across the galaxy. Lieutenant Colonel Mu Jin watched the retreat from her monitoring station. "Sir, the collective ships are not heading toward deep space. They are moving toward the outer planets." "What are they doing out there?" Minho asked. Dr. Shin Tae-young, who had been analyzing alien technology for weeks, provided the answer. "They are probably trying to establish a communication relay to contact their main empire. If they succeed, Earth could face an even larger invasion force." The thought was terrifying. The 10,000-ship Armada had been devastating enough. If the collective could summon reinforcements, humanity and their newly liberated alien allies would face impossible odds. "We cannot let them establish contact with their empire," Minho decided. "Captain Kite, prepare your fighters for a pursuit mission." But Captain Kite had a different idea. "Admiral, I think we should let them try to contact their empire." Everyone on the command bridge turned to stare at him in shock. "Explain yourself." "Captain," Minho said carefully. "The liberation virus is still active in our quantum systems," Kaite replied. "Dr. Young Sik designed it to propagate through any quantum communication network. If the collective opens a channel to their empire, the virus will spread to every connected ship across the galaxy." Dr. Choi Young-sik, who was monitoring the conversation, confirmed Kite's assessment. "The captain is correct. The virus is designed to travel through quantum entanglement networks. Any ship that receives communication from the infected vessels will also become infected." "You are suggesting we let them spread freedom throughout their entire empire?" Minho asked. "Exactly," Young-sik replied with growing excitement. "Instead of fighting one fleet, we could liberate their entire civilization." The plan was audacious and dangerous. If it worked, It would free billions of enslaved beings across the galaxy. If it failed, Earth would face the combined might of a galactic empire. The risk is enormous, Im-Yu-Jin pointed out. If the Empire realizes what is happening, they could send forces that make this fleet look tiny. True, Minho agreed. But the alternative is living in fear that they will return. Anyway, at least this way, we might end the threat permanently. Meanwhile, the liberated alien ships were dealing with their own crisis. Commander Thekvar, who had been the first to remove his control implant, was trying to coordinate with thousands of newly free beings who had forgotten how to make independent decisions. We need to help them, Engineer Song Na-Rai suggested to Admiral Min-Ho. They are our allies now, but they are also refugees who need guidance. Min-Ho agreed and ordered Song Na-Rai to establish a humanitarian mission to assist the liberated aliens. It was the beginning of the most extraordinary diplomatic effort in human history. Song Na-Rai's team worked around the clock to establish communication protocols with the freed aliens. Each species within the collective had different languages, cultures, and ways of thinking. Some had been enslaved for thousands of years and barely remembered their original identities. It is like counseling trauma victims, Song Na-Rai reported. Many of them are afraid to make decisions because they have been punished for independent thought for so long. The humans began teaching the aliens basic concepts of freedom, how to choose, how to disagree with each other without violence, how to cooperate without losing individuality. Dr. Won Ji-hyun, a psychologist specializing in recovery from trauma, was brought in to help design rehabilitation programs for the liberated aliens. They need to learn to trust their own thoughts again, she explained. The collective did not just control their actions, it convinced them that individual thinking was wrong and dangerous. As the rehabilitation efforts continued, the remaining collective ships reached the outer solar system and began establishing their communication relay. Hidden monitoring stations detected massive quantum transmissions being sent toward deep space. They are definitely contacting their empire, Young-sik reported. The transmissions are incredibly powerful. They must be reaching across thousands of light years. Is the virus spreading with the transmissions? Min-Ho asked. Yes, but it will take time to propagate through their network. We estimate at least several weeks before significant effects are visible. The waiting period was tense. Earth's defenders monitored space constantly, expecting massive reinforcement fleets to arrive at any moment. But as days passed, something different began to happen. Long-range sensors detected unusual activity in distant star systems. Ships were changing course, abandoning formation, and in some cases attacking each other. The liberation virus was working, but its effects were creating chaos throughout the alien empire. Look at this, Im-Yu-Jin announced, displaying sensor data on the main screen. We are detecting quantum communication disruptions across dozens of star systems. Their entire command structure appears to be breaking down. Reports began arriving from liberated aliens who still had contacts in other parts of the empire. The virus was spreading faster than anyone had expected, and its effects were even more dramatic than hoped. My cousin serves on a ship near the galactic core, Commander Thekvar reported. He transmitted that half his fleet has broken free from collective control. They are fighting against the remaining collective ships in their sector. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. The rigid hierarchy that had held the alien empire together for millions of years was collapsing as individual consciousness awakened in ship after ship, but the collective was not giving up without a fight. The empire's core worlds, where the original hive mind intelligence was based, began implementing emergency protocols. They are trying to cut their quantum communication networks, Dr. Young-sik observed. If they succeed, they can isolate uninfected regions from the virus. How much of their empire is still under collective control? Admiral Min-Ho asked. Based on our analysis of communication patterns, maybe 30%, Young-sik replied. But that includes their most heavily defended core systems. The collective was essentially performing surgery on itself, cutting away infected regions, to save the core of their empire. Billions of beings were being abandoned to maintain control over the remaining loyal territories. Captain Hwang Dong-hyun, who had planted the original virus, proposed a daring mission. We could try to reach their core systems directly, plant viruses in their central command networks before they finish isolating themselves. That would require traveling thousands of light years, Minho pointed out. Our ships do not have that range. The liberated alien ships do, Dong-hyun replied. Some of them are fast, long-range vessels designed for interstellar travel. If we work together, we could reach the core systems before they complete their isolation. The proposal sparked intense debate among Earth's leadership. Such a mission would take human crews far from Earth, possibly forever. But it might also ensure that the collective could never threaten Earth again. I volunteer for the mission, Captain Kaite announced. My pilots have proven they can work with alien technology and tactics. So do I, Song Na-rae added. The liberated aliens will need human guidance on how to maintain their freedom. Dr. Won Ji-hyun also volunteered, recognizing that millions of newly freed beings would need psychological support. Admiral Min-ho faced the most difficult decision of his career. Sending humans on an interstellar mission was unprecedented and dangerous. But the potential to liberate an entire galactic empire was too important to ignore. Prepare the volunteer mission, he decided, but we go with full diplomatic and humanitarian support. Our goal is not conquest, but liberation. As preparations began for the interstellar mission, Earth received an unexpected communication. It came from the original collective ships that had retreated to the outer solar system. This is Collective Command Ship Alpha, the transmission began. We request negotiation for peaceful resolution. The hive mind was asking for surrender terms. Admiral, the collective representative continued, our empire is collapsing. The infection you introduced has spread beyond our ability to contain. We wish to discuss terms for coexistence. Min-ho smiled. The most powerful empire in galactic history was ready to negotiate with the small planet they had come to conquer. Tell them we are willing to talk, he replied. But our terms are simple. Freedom for all enslaved beings and the right to self-determination for every thinking creature in the galaxy. Sir, Song Na-rae asked, what if they refuse? Then we continue. The mission to their core worlds, Min-ho replied. Freedom is not negotiable. The alien armada that had come to destroy Earth was now asking Earth for permission to exist. The tables had completely turned, and humanity held all the cards. But Min-ho knew the real victory was not the defeat of the alien empire. It was the awakening of billions of individual minds across the galaxy. The universe was about to become a much more interesting and free place to live. The negotiations with the collective took place in the neutral space between Earth and the outer planets. Admiral Kang Min-ho led the human delegation, while Ambassador Choi Min-jung served as the chief diplomat for what was becoming the first interstellar peace treaty in human history. The collective's representatives were different from the liberated aliens Earth had been helping. These beings still had their cybernetic implants, but the hive mind controlling them seemed weakened and desperate. We offer territorial division, the collective spokesman announced through mechanical translation devices. You keep inner solar systems. We maintain outer galaxy regions. No further conflict. Min-jung shook her head firmly. That is not acceptable. We do not want territory. We want freedom for all enslaved beings throughout the galaxy. Freedom causes chaos, the collective replied. Individual thinking leads to conflict and inefficiency. Our system provides order and purpose. Your system provides slavery, Captain Nam Ki-tae interjected. He had been invited to the negotiations because of his military expertise. We have seen what happens when your victims are freed. They do not choose chaos, they choose cooperation. To prove his point, Ki-tae gestured toward the viewing window where liberated alien ships could be seen working together to repair damage from their civil war. Former enemies were now sharing resources and knowledge voluntarily. Commander Thekvar, representing the liberated aliens, spoke for the first time in the negotiations. I served the collective for 3,000 years. I thought individual freedom was evil because that is what I was programmed to think. Now I know the truth. Cooperation chosen freely is stronger than cooperation forced by fear. The collective representatives seemed unable to process this concept. Their rigid thinking could not accept that beings might work together without being forced to do so. Meanwhile, Dr. Won Ji-hyun continued her work with the thousands of liberated aliens now living in temporary refugee camps throughout the solar system. Each day brought new discoveries about the diversity of species that had been enslaved by the collective. Every species has different strengths, she reported to the diplomatic team. Some are natural engineers, others are artists, and some are philosophers. The collective wasted all this potential by forcing them to think identically. Her reports strengthened Earth's negotiating position. The collective had not just conquered other species, they had diminished themselves by suppressing the very diversity that could have made their empire stronger. Dr. Choi Young-sik brought even more encouraging news from his monitoring stations. The Liberation virus has now reached the collective's core systems. We are detecting massive communication disruptions in their capital region. How much of their empire remains under collective control? Min Jung asked. Less than 15%, and it is shrinking every day, Young-sik replied. Most of their remaining ships are isolated and cannot receive new orders from the Central Command. This information fundamentally changed the nature of the negotiations. The collective was not offering peace from a position of strength. They were desperately trying to save what remained of their empire. Your empire is collapsing anyway, Minho told the collective representatives. We are offering you a chance to be part of the solution instead of continuing to be the problem. Explain solution, the collective spokesman requested. Ambassador. Min Jung presented Earth's proposal. Remove the cybernetic implants from all remaining collective members. Allow them to choose whether to remain loyal to you or seek independence. Provide support and resources to help liberated species rebuild their home worlds. This eliminates collective unity, the spokesman protested. No, Thekvar replied gently. It creates real unity. Unity based on choice rather than force. The negotiations continued for several days while the liberation virus spread throughout the remaining collective territories. Each day brought reports of more ships and planets breaking free from hive mind control. Engineer Song Na-rae had established communication networks allowing newly liberated beings across the galaxy to share their experiences. The result was an explosion of creativity and innovation as millions of suppressed minds began working together voluntarily. They are sharing art, science, and philosophy that was hidden for millennia, she reported excitedly. Species that were enemies under the collective are now collaborating on projects that could benefit everyone. Some of the most interesting developments came from former collective core worlds. These planets had been the most heavily controlled, but they also contained the most advanced technology. When their populations were liberated, they immediately began working to help other worlds recover. The former collective homeworld just transmitted blueprints for medical technology that could save millions of lives, Dr. Shin Tae-young announced. They are freely sharing knowledge that the collective kept secret for millions of years. This generosity from former enemies impressed even the most skeptical humans. The liberated aliens were not seeking revenge against their former oppressors. They were working to heal the damage caused by millennia of forced unity. Captain Huang Dong-hyun led the first human expedition to visit a liberated world in a distant star system. What his team found exceeded all expectations. The transformation is incredible, he reported via quantum communication. 6 months ago, this was a heavily industrialized world producing weapons for the collective. Now it is becoming a center for art and education. The liberated inhabitants had not abandoned technology. They had redirected it toward creative and beneficial purposes. Weapons factories were being converted into research centers. Military training facilities had become schools and hospitals. They are not just recovering from slavery, Dong-hyun continued. They are becoming something better than they were before the collective conquered them. Back in the solar system, the final collective ships were making their decision. The hive mind controlling them had become so weakened that individual crew members were beginning to think independently, even with their implants still active. I request permission to remove control devices, the collective spokesman said, using individual pronouns for the first time. Fear of individual thought has been programming. Want to experience choice. Admiral Min-ho felt a moment of profound satisfaction. The beings who had come to destroy Earth were now asking Earth to teach them how to be free. Permission granted, he replied warmly, and welcome to the community of independent worlds. The removal of the collective's cybernetic implants was performed by joint human-alien medical teams. Dr. Won Ji-hyun supervised the psychological rehabilitation process, helping former collective members learn to trust their own thoughts and feelings. The last collective spokesman, now free of his implants, chose the name Veltar for himself. He had been a collective drone for over 5,000 years, but remembered fragments of his original identity as a scientist and explorer. "I want to help others like me," he told Won Ji-hyun during one of their sessions. "So many beings across the galaxy are struggling with freedom after millennia of slavery. They need guidance from those who have walked this path." This desire to help others became the foundation for what Earth's diplomats called the Galactic Liberation Council. Former collective members worked alongside humans and early liberation allies to provide support for newly freed worlds. Ambassador Choi Min-jung was elected as the first human representative to this council, which quickly grew to include delegates from over 300 liberated worlds. "Our goal is simple," she announced at the council's first meeting. "We want to ensure that no being is ever forced to surrender their individual thoughts and choices again." The council established principles that would govern relations between all member worlds: respect for individual choice, voluntary cooperation, and the sharing of knowledge and resources for mutual benefit. Dr. Choi Young-sik's liberation virus continued to spread, but its work was nearly complete. The last isolated collective strongholds fell not to military assault, but to the simple realization that freedom was possible. "The virus has reached every known collective territory," he reported 6 months after the original invasion attempt. "We estimate that over 99% of enslaved beings have now been liberated. The few remaining collective loyalists were not eliminated or punished. Instead, they were offered the same choice as everyone else: join the free galactic community or establish isolated territories where they could maintain their collective lifestyle without forcing it on others. Most chose freedom." Captain Nam Kite, now promoted to Admiral, led the Earth Defense Force in its new role as Guardians of Galactic Freedom. Instead of protecting just Earth, they worked to ensure that no world could be conquered by would-be tyrants. "We are not the galaxy's police," he explained to his officers. "We are the galaxy's teachers. Our job is to show everyone that freedom works better than slavery." Lieutenant Yu Jin-a, now commanding her own squadron, discovered that her greatest battles were not against enemies, but against fear and ignorance. Many liberated beings were terrified of making choices after millennia, of having decisions made for them. "Teaching someone to be free is harder than fighting a war," she reflected. "But it is also more rewarding." The alien armada that had come to destroy Earth was now integrated into